So today we're dealing with part 4 of the basics of deliverance and healing. And this part 4 is we've already casted the demons out. Now this is kind of like maybe homework that they need to do to keep the deliverance, to keep clean. Starting out, what does renewing our mind mean? All it means is being obedient to God. Renewing our mind means we're in that continual process of shedding off that old man to be led by the Spirit as the new person. It's that process. It isn't a once done, I gave myself to the Lord, now I'm for God, I'm this new person. It's more of a gradual, how much have you given yourself to the Lord? How much are you submitting yourself to the will, your own will, to the will of the Lord? It's as you progress, that's the level of renewing your mind that you've achieved. So it's not a light switch. It's more of a, how far are you in renewing your mind? Our goal is to continuously be led by the Spirit throughout the day. And what we have to choose is, do we want to be led by the world, or do we want to be led by the Holy Spirit? They're usually at odds, and they're usually sometimes drastically different. Sometimes there's just a twist or a warp in there that you have to catch to be fully led by the Spirit rather than the world. It isn't always a full frontal attack. Sometimes it's just a little twist, a little trick in there. So you really have to make up your mind. What does the world say? What does the Word say? And you have to choose. You can't let politics, you can't let the media, we can't let what our family says, we can't let anything trump what the Word says. You can, but it's just a choice we got to make. And that's at what level of a renewed mind are you living in? As we mature spiritually, we want to eventually be led by spiritual eyes throughout your whole day. And what that means is, if you truly want to submit your will to the Word, sometimes it's going to go against your old habits or your old ways, and it's going to be uncomfortable to change your ways. Well, as you strive to be obedient, the Holy Spirit is going to lead us more. And then we're going to do God's will more, because He reveals God's will. He leads us. And when He's leading us, we're going to feel His conviction when we're getting off track to get back on track. He's going to show us that, don't do this, get back on track. And that's how part of the way we're going to be able to stay on track. And what we want to do is kind of turn our eyes over to the Holy Spirit. So you're looking at everything spiritually rather than worldly. When you let the Holy Spirit look through your eyes and you deal with every situation spiritually, from a spiritual perspective, that is kind of the filter how you will let things into you, or how you're going to be able to deal with it. It's going to be filtered through the Holy Spirit. And this can prevent you from getting overwhelmed, from going enraged. It's letting the Holy Spirit spiritualize. And it's kind of hard to teach that until you are actually trying to live like a disciple, and you are turning yourself over to the Holy Spirit. Then a light bulb goes off, saying, oh, I understand now. Otherwise, if you don't quite fully get it, keep being more submissive to the Word, being obedient. To heck with yourself, to heck with the world. Try to be just obedient to what the Word says. And then the Holy Spirit's going to see that, and He's going to move more for you. He's going to move more for you. And then pretty soon, you can kind of let Him run the ship, and you're just kind of following along. And that's what we want to strive to be like. I'm not saying that's how I roll all the time, but I am constantly trying to roll that way. So, an example of that is being a police officer. There is one time in my career, which I probably told you guys this already. I remember sitting on the couch with my wife, and I remember I dealt with, it was a pedophile. It was a particularly bad guy. And I remember telling my wife, I wish God would give me a short list of people to take out. Because I would take them out. And when I do it, it'd be face to face where I can look into his eyes. That was my mentality at the time. I won't use a tool, I'd use my hands. That's just, I wish he would unleash me to do that. Well, I look back now and I just cringe because I was looking through worldly eyes and I was thinking some people just need to be taken out. Now, looking through spiritual eyes, I can separate the demonic influence from the person. And now I don't have any animosity towards that person. It doesn't mean I won't hesitate to do what I need to do to stop this person, whether that means killing them or not, whatever it may be. But there's going to be no animosity or hatred behind it. It's just going to be a tactical decision that I think is appropriate at that time because I've separated the demonic influence in his life from the pedophile. So now I see a person not much different than me, influenced by demons. Let's go after those demons. Now I can separate that. And a lot of people who can't have a hard time forgiving, it's when they can separate the demon from the person. That's when all of a sudden they can allow unforgiveness to happen. So that's just a different perspective of looking at the world through spiritual eyes. And also, I used to feel when I'm looking through spiritual eyes, I can't get offended. Someone can say just the worst things to me, and it's just like an objective thing. It's almost interesting, you know. I just don't get offended. If I look through worldly eyes through myself, now my pride can rise up, and I can get offended. I can, ugh. A good soldier remains unemotional, cold, and just they react tactically with a sound mind. That happens when you're looking through spiritual eyes. If you're looking through worldly eyes, your emotions are going to overrule you, and you're going to be not only a mess yourself, but you're not going to be helpful for other people. And that's why Jesus says, if you let the cares of this world rule you, you cannot be a good soldier for me. You have to look through spiritual eyes and let this stuff roll off your back. Sometimes it's easier said than done, especially when you're dealing with intense hurt and pain. That's different than someone just trying to make you mad, you know. So you really got to lean on him, but he gives you long suffering to get through it. You know, doesn't remove.
I'd use the word cold. Look at it cold.
Right. That's kind of a.
Pretty warm.
Look at you mean like a detached, unemotional?
Yeah, like just be cold.
I'm kind of relating back to the SWAT team where it's just unemotional. Shoot, don't shoot. I'm not going to let emotion involve at all. Otherwise, that's going to lead to a bad decision. Those spur of the moment decisions. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards too. But it's a little hardcore sometimes. So. All right, so that's spiritual eyes. We want to constantly be walking in our day through spiritual eyes. That doesn't mean we have to read the Bible all day, and then on the few breaks we take, we drop to our knees and pray. No. As a matter of fact, you can go throughout your day, and maybe you didn't pray once, maybe you didn't read the Bible once, maybe you had nothing to do. If someone was videotaping all day, it had nothing to do with Christianity. But that doesn't mean throughout your day you're not processing the world through those spiritual eyes, and you're not doing anything that is going to go against the grain, against God's will, and maybe you didn't accomplish a whole lot that day. Maybe you cast no demons out and didn't, help an orphan, whatever. But it doesn't mean you have to make it this weird thing. That means we live our lives like we live our lives. But while we do it, we look through spiritual eyes. All right, with that said, this is all about maintaining our deliverance. We got the demons cast out. We don't want them to come back in. We look through spiritual eyes and try to walk through our day this way. And not only that, are we trying to stay clean, but when we're looking through spiritual eyes, we're going to be interceding for other people better. Because the Holy Spirit's leading the ship, and he is going to lead you to intercede for other people. Whether it isn't necessarily deliverance, healing, teaching the word, maybe bringing people to people who can do it. One way or another, we're getting there. We're working Now we're starting to make like when we work, disciples work together, like the assembly as in the Bible, they work together. We find each other's gifts, weaknesses, strengths, and we work together as a team, putting God ahead. Therefore, no one is trying to, with their own self-centered pride, trying to get ahead of the other people. No, it's God. And only by manifesting and walking in power can we find these gifts and start working together and making an army. Well, as far as hindrances to those spiritual eyes, what I've come to find is the number one thing that hinders that, or almost any spiritual progress, is pride. It's almost like the root of everything else bad is pride. Pride is a spiritual blinding spirit. It blinds us. It makes us not realize we need deliverance. It makes us fight against such things. I didn't learn that in seminary. I didn't learn that in Bible college. We don't do that in our church. Well, why not? Just read the word. And what we do know is when Jesus first picked his disciples, he said, I'm picking you because I want you to teach the word, cast out demons, and heal the sick. That's what I'm going to be having you do. All within the first sentence, in the same sentence. That's what he said. And then during the training process of his disciples, Jesus taught them not only the word, but cast out demons, heal the sick, and he had them practice it. Go out and do it. He wanted them to do it. And then the Great Commission, he says, this is what I want you to do until I come back, is make disciples, not Christians, make that are saved and stop there. Make disciples who walk in power. Baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teach them to do everything I taught you to do, including teach the word, heal the sick, cast out demons. And then before he ascends, Mark 16, he says, you know you're making disciples when they're casting out demons, healing the sick, speaking in tongues, blah, 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 blah. So somewhere in there, pride creeps into the seminaries, creeps into the churches. Well, what if I pray for them and they're not healed? That's going to show that God doesn't do that nowadays. No, what that's going to show is that your pride, your ego, might be hurt if you don't try to be obedient. Call it what you want. So pride blinds us from doing things. We don't see it. And then when we can see it, it comes into our ego. And when we can't hurt our ego, it's just everything in the world says don't walk in power, which means don't be led by the Holy Spirit. The world is going to use pride to prevent us from being led by the Spirit, in depth at least. Because if the Spirit is leading us, we're looking through spiritual eyes, we are going to cast out demons, heal the sick, that type of thing, because that's what he does. And it just happens in his wake. And we're just walking, being obedient behind him. That's it. So pride. One example of pride is we talk about it almost every time, the subtle entitlement and subtle justification to harbor sin. Well, actually, like anger, unforgiveness, these type of things aren't sin until you realize, you catch yourself and you decide to harbor it and keep it. Now it evolves into a sin. So you got to catch yourself and say, no, I'm not going to hold on to this. Well, what tells you to hold on to it is pride. No, you have the right. You deserve to hold on to this because they treated you so badly. That's right. That's right. Pride. That's pride. So pride is it creeps in. It's not always obvious. But we got to fight that tooth and nail. Every deliverance, we should be casting out doubt and unbelief and pride. Across the board. You have pain? You just have a sore foot? All right, we're going to start with unbelief, doubt, and pride. We're going to get rid of that, So, any questions about that? All right, cares of the world. That's another one. I think we already talked about it around, maybe I mentioned it before the camera started. I don't know. But the cares of the world, you're not going to be a good soldier if you're sucked into this world, a good soldier for God. He says, you can't be a good soldier for me unless you let the cares of the world roll off your back. Otherwise, those cares suck you into the world. And if you're not looking through spiritual eyes anymore, Holy Spirit's not leading you anymore. And now you're going to be fighting things in your carnal, worldly ways, which has no power in the Spirit. Back off of those cares, regroup, turn yourself over to the Lord, let the Holy Spirit run the show, look through those spiritual eyes, and then deal with that perspective. And sometimes at that moment, all you're going to be able to do is what you can do in the world at that time, and then turn it over to the Lord. Don't let it penetrate. I know easier said than done, but that's what we need to practice. And actually, a lot of this is a habit that we actually can develop. So cares of the world, can't let them, worries, the fears, for example, of finances. Let's say, oh, I can't pay rent. Oh, I'm really stressed out. I got my 2 kids. This has been ongoing for half a year now. We might get evicted. That's a legitimate worry. But you catch yourself. What can I do? What are my options? You look at it objectively, unemotionally. You make your decision, and then you turn it over to the Lord. Another one's distractions. And this is very common for Christians who are very active in the church. But we have to prioritize what we want to do. Our priority is the Great Commission. Teach the word deeply and to do everything that I've commanded my disciples to do. And you know you're succeeding when they cast out demons, heal the sick, speak in tongues. In other words, being led by the Spirit. Are we teaching, is our priority teaching people how to be led by the Spirit and look through spiritual eyes? If we are, excellent, because that's our goal. If it is, hey, can you make this for the potluck and then go to this choir practice and then do this, and you're just busy for the Lord all day. Good, there's nothing wrong with that. But is that becoming habitual to the point where you're not prioritizing what's important to the Lord? So I would say just make sure that your priorities are correct. And a lot of churches, if they don't cast out demons, heal the stuff, if they're not walking in power, they're not going to make it a priority. And they're going to give you, if you're willing to be busy for the church, they're going to give you things to do, and pretty soon it's a distraction because the church isn't walking in power and now you're not. Any questions?
That's probably a less obvious distraction too. Obvious distractions are phones, TVs, sports.
Yeah.
But you might not even realize you're distracted from the word because it's all good stuff.
Busybody stuff, kind of. It's not bad.
But
it's
church,
good.
But church stuff, so you think, because I'm sure I was in that boat thinking I was, doing great, but probably not. I know it wasn't my focus to make disciples.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there's people in our same congregation who are verge of suicide. They feel like killing themselves. Kids that are just absolutely rebellious, astray, just awful stuff happening. Well, that's where our priority needs to be. But if we don't know, if the church doesn't know how to address it with power, then they're not going to send you that way. That's where we really have to read the word ourselves and decide what our priority is. And it is to the church. None of that stuff I said is bad. We all know that. But if it's distracting us to the point where people aren't getting helped, then find a new church, or you got to make a decision yourself to go out of your way within that church and help people. Yeah, and obviously TV, social media, all that stuff. Again, that stuff isn't necessarily by itself an evil thing either. But when you actually realize that you can pray for someone and their pain can leave, when you can set their demons free and take down strongholds in their lives, someday when you see the Lord and he shows you how much time you wasted watching TV and this stuff, and you just think, what if that person who committed suicide, who got lost in drugs, this, just what if I would have, you know? Probably not enough to keep us, I'm not saying that's going to be a judgment, but what regret we might have, you know? You think, I could have been a better soldier than that, you know? All that the cares of the world, the distractions, pushed me off track. And the bottom line is, when someone gets deliverance or gets healed, we want them to not jump back into the same pigsty they came from. So if it's a drug addiction, we got to remove them. We aren't going to do anything. We're not going to try to control people. We're not going to get involved in spiritual witchcraft. But we're going to try to guide them and lead them and suggest and help them get set free. So you got the spiritual world, and then you got your own flesh. So we can help with the spiritual, cast out those demons. But now they're going to have to fight the flesh, and we're not going to be around them all the time. So we have to try to say, you're going back to live next door to that place, that house that sells meth, who you get your meth from. How about we come up with a different plan? Just try to set them on the course that they're not going to just get reinfected by demons. And that's going to be different for everybody. If it's everything in their life is good, but things are getting twisted because they're addicted to porn, maybe they have the discipline during the day not to do it. Well, at night, maybe they're going to put that phone away. They're going to shut that phone off. We got to figure out a way to not get reinfected until the new habit in the flesh is developed. And eventually those demons kind of give up on you and they move on. So then pretty soon you're going to conquer that stronghold. And now you can kind of go back to more of a normal life. But during that fight, that season, you got to help yourself out the best you can. There's so many ex-military guys that come on the podcasts and YouTube. They talk about the trauma, the PTSD, and the brain damage that they have from all the concussions. And they're really good at, I tried this drug, Esquanda, whatever that is, and it really set me free, or mushrooms, or these this therapy. But you can still see kind of the struggle. And a lot of them are, and I'm a Christian, I think we deal with things deeper. It's a deeper thing. It's a spiritual thing. And then they stop. It's like, you just don't quite, like you're up to the rim, but you don't quite dunk the ball. It's demons. It's demons pushing you. Let's clear those demons out and now fight the flesh. Because now you're not being driven into that. And that's the X factor that they don't quite get to, you know? So, which is amazing when you read the Bible and we're a Christian nation and we don't do it. What a disconnect. And it's really easy to get frustrated at the American church, for me, you know. So I'm learning to tone that down because I don't want to be turning pastors off. But at the same time, kind of bring it to their attention without calling them out, you know. So, all right, that's it. That's just after they're delivered. We want to kind of be conscientious of these things. Anything? If not, we'll call it a day.